You have heard the tale 1,000 times before. Start investing while you're young and compound interest will make you rich. And this is true, but I would like to add a little bit of nuance to it. I'm Birk the Economist, and this is the real reason why you should invest. If you're saving about 100 USD every single month, that's 1,200 a year. Now, if you keep this money in a regular bank account, you're looking at approximately 0% interest rate. Some special saving accounts will yield 2% interest rate, but what if you were to invest them in an index? Now, some index funds yields about 10% every single year. Now, your accumulation of wealth over time is going to look drastically different. Let me show you. This graph shows your savings over a 20-year period. The blue line is your savings in a normal account with 0% interest rate, which is just what you put in. The yellow shows 2% interest rate, which is what you can expect from a normal savings account. Now, the red one shows 10%, and that's the average return of the S&P 500 index. Now, I do not recommend you purchase the S&P 500 index, but that's another discussion for another video. It's clear that there's a small difference between getting 0% and 2%. But the real difference comes from investing or not. After 20 years, you would have saved around 24,000 USD. If you had invested that money, you would on average have just shy of 80,000 USD. That's a difference of about 56,000. Now, if you had kept them for 50 years instead, the graph will evolve pretty significantly. You would have saved about 60,000 USD, but had you invested, you would be looking at close to 1.6 million USD. And that's the power of compound growth. I'm sure you've seen this a million times before, but there is an issue with this approach. You see, money loses value over time. You can buy less goods for the same amount of money. Now, this is called inflation, and inflation is dynamic. It changes all of the time. Some years it's 5%, and some years it's going to be 2%. The central banks of the world, that would be ECB, would be Fed, their primary job here is to hit an inflation target of 2%. And that's just a target, right? They're never really hitting 2%. But for this video and for this context, we're just going to assume that they will reach their target of 2%. Allow me to introduce to you two different economic terms. Those are real values and nominal values. For our purposes, let's look at the interest rate. Now, the Fisher equation states that you can approximately find the real interest rate by looking at the nominal interest rate minus the inflation. So the real inflation rate really is how much stronger does your purchasing power become every single period. Whereas the nominal interest rate is merely the amount of percent you're getting back from said money. Let's take a look at a quick example. The nominal interest rate for this is 4%, and that's the interest rate that's stated to you by your bank, for instance. If the inflation in that year then is 2%, then we can calculate the real interest rate as 4% minus 2%. And yes, it is that easy. Remember the graphs we looked at earlier, where we compared wealth over time depending on how we saved the money. These graphs all show the nominal growth, that is, before accounting for inflation. But if you want to understand how much wealth we really gain from saving, we need to adjust for inflation. In other words, we need to use the real interest rate. With that in mind, take a look at this graph comparing savings in the normal account and the special savings account. We see that the normal account now yields a negative return of 2% every single year, and the savings account only yields 0% or just what you put in. Thankfully, if we include the S&P 500, the story isn't nearly as grim. We see that by year 50, we end up with about 800 USD in today's money, of course, as long as we keep investing the 1,200 USD every single year. Now, this might not be as much as people expect, and it's not really what other investment videos tend to promise. But this is what happens once you account for inflation, and this really is what your investment is worth if you're looking at it through today's money. So it's clear you need to invest if you want your money to grow. But why exactly is that the case? Well, let's go back and consider inflation for a moment. You and I, we experienced it as some item costing more than it did yesterday. But if we look through the lens of the company, well, they're charging more money for the same item. This means that their bottom line, their profits will increase. And then the profits are delegated out to you, the investor, or perhaps is found in a higher stock price. Please note that this is a very harsh simplification, and it doesn't truly reflect the real-world scenario. Often, companies will experience higher prices themselves, or they will have to pay higher wages. But this is another topic for another video. For this case, the argument works just fine. Just know that it is a bit of a strict simplification here. So there you have it. Compound interest is your friend, and firms are somewhat inflation-proof. So those really are all of the reasons you need to start investing. If you're on the fence, just dive in. It can be the whole difference of being somewhat poor and being somewhat well off later in life. If you want more economic insights or perhaps more investment videos, make sure you subscribe. The next video is going to be all about, should you invest in the stock market or should you perhaps buy property? Which one is the better investment? If you want to see more of that, well, click subscribe. And by the way, thank you for watching.